Hi, Miriam. It's so nice to have you with me. I mean, it's a special, special honor because you're actually the first one who told me we could start a podcast. So I really am very thankful that you came to visit on my podcast for a change. And I really feel that you have a lot, not only to give my, listeners, but to give me personally. Um, this week is my mother's yahrzeit. It's her third yahrzeit. It's on the 12th of Kislev, which is the 6th of December. And
Wow.
it's it's a quite hard time for me, obviously, and my family. And I know that you definitely have personal experience and also experience while working with people. So the first thing I think we should do is introduce you properly. So this is Miriam Ribiat, and she wrote not one book, but more than one book. So could we just have the names of the books first?
Yes. First of all, I want to thank you though for bringing me on, and I want to wish. I guess it's a little bit early, but I want to wish anyways for your mother's neshama to have Hallelujah.
Amen, amen.
The books that I wrote on grief are "I Wish Someone Would Have Told Me," which is a book for teens that lost a parent. But I want to say that I am getting a lot of feedback from adults also that read it, adults that lost a parent when they were teens, or even adults that lost spouses. I'm getting feedback from those also.
I'm just
And
looking back. Yeah. Yeah.
another book that I recently came out with is more like small, more like a pamphlet type, but it's called "I Wish Someone Would Have Told My Friend," and it's for the friends of girls that lost a parent, kind of to give them, some sort of idea of what their friend might be dealing with.
I'll tell you one thing that your book that you wrote maybe for for having a teenager or something, I actually read it, and to me it just spoke to my soul. What should I tell you? It really, and I'm way above the age group that you're mentioning. So
Thank you.
yeah.
I
um
think that's one of the things with grief. Grief is grief. It hurts, like regardless of the age.
yeah, it's interesting that you say that, Miriam, because it's coming up to 3 years, and you know how when it happens everyone says, oh, you'll get over it slowly. It will get easier and easier. And actually, this is the third year, and I actually feel it's a little bit harder this year. And I'm wondering if you think that that's a normal reaction, or what would you say on that?
I think that it's very normal. I think that if time goes on and a person is less and less functionable and they can't cope, maybe then it's time for professional help. But in general, it comes and goes. It comes in waves, and sometimes the waves could last for a long time. I know that by my whose yahrzeit was it? I think it was by my father's fifth yahrzeit. It was like the hardest day of my life. I feel like it was such a difficult day. And I think I found the same thing by my sister's fifth yahrzeit. By me, there's something about five that just really hurt. Yeah.
Can I just ask you? I think it's important that people understand what your connection with coping with grief is about. I know it's a very personal story, and it's a very hard to talk about it, but I think that for our listeners, it's important that we know where you're coming from. So
Sure.
if you could give us a little bit about it.
So I lost my brother. He was 14 years old. I was about 20 when he was nifter. And then I got married shortly after, and I had children, and I was young, still very young, when my mother and my sister each got sick. They both got like cancers, different kinds of cancers. It was very weird. And while they were sick, my father, who was completely healthy, he just had a massive heart attack and died one night. So that was like a shock. Like, what? Like, it doesn't make sense. We're davening for my mother, we're davening for my sister. So my father, who's totally healthy, dies. Like something, just didn't make sense. And I guess that's because it didn't. It doesn't.
That's the truth.
And then my mother and my sister each died, shortly after that.
Wow, wow. So to say that you understand what grief is about is to say it quite mildly. So I mean that's important, because I think people don't realize that where you're writing this from. You're not just writing it, as a psychologist who's looking in from the outside. I think you really have an experience that does help a lot of people cope with this type of thing. I mean, Miriam has a fantastic, fantastic podcast called, Miriam, what's the name of it again?
Relief from Grief.
From Grief. I mean, that's how I met Miriam. I was listening. I think I read about it and I took the clickbait, as they say, and I clicked on it, and I just was completely consumed with listening to the way you interviewed and everything. So could you explain to us like what type of stuff you interview and how it works?
So let me first say that I do this under the auspices of a nonprofit organization called Habe Told My Friends. And Habe Told My Friends really, like, it started out as for people that couldn't finish their learning for a yard site, or whatever it was, they wanted to finish whatever kind of learning, men, ladies, they wanted to finish learning for yard site. So they would come to us, and we have people that are, sitting and learning, and they take on the learning. And because we were dealing with that kind of crowd, people that went through loss, it slowly branched out to a lot of, like Jewish support and grief. So that's kind of the branch that I take care of. So after I wrote my book, I wish someone would have told me. Is that what it's called? Yeah. I was told, okay, go market it. I mean, it was published by a regular publishing company. It's in all the stores, but still I was told, go market it. And I was like, I don't know how to do that. I'm not a marketer. So I started asking around, and I kept on hearing podcast. That's the way to do things today. So I took the jump, and I started bringing on different people into my podcast. The podcast is not me talking for 45 minutes straight. That would kind of be boring. But even though I have so much to say, so I like to bring on people with all different kinds of experiences, so that, a person that's listening could really get a feel of what grief is, how it could show up, where it could come up. And even if someone isn't in like grieving, they didn't lose anyone, it brings an awareness to, what someone could be going through, their neighbor, their friend, their cousin, what they might be going through.
Yeah. I mean, you've had such interesting people on. It's like been really quite amazing as you've continued it. I haven't listened as much recently, but every time I listen, there's always such interesting guests on. I mean, is there any particular story that you felt a real deep connection to, or is it everybody that you feel it to?
Let me think. So one person that came on was actually a bacher. I'm from Detroit. He was a bacher learning in Detroit at the time, and our families go way back. My father was very good friends with his father, so he kind of came to my house a lot. I look back and I laugh. I'm like, how did the yeshiva laugh? He would come to dad in a house full of girls, but whatever. We definitely had fun.
We're living in a different age. That's all I can say.
I guess so. But he came out. I actually brought him on because he felt so close to my family, that losing my father and losing my brother and my sister, it was my mother. Like it was very, very hard for him. Even though you might say like hello, like what's like you've been living in Eretz for years, you haven't seen them in years, but still, it was very, very So that was definitely a connection.
I think that's the first one I heard from you. And
oh yeah, okay. Mrs. Shandel Symes, did you hear hers? She was more recent. Hers was just she lost her husband in a car accident. Well, they were in a car accident, and her husband and like 7 or 8 kids, and everyone was fine besides for her husband, who became a paraplegic, and he was a paraplegic for many years before he died. So that was just very touching. Besides that the story is so sad, what I really felt was just her strength to go on, like the way she continued, taking care of her husband, raising her kids. She was pregnant at the time she had a baby, and it was, so that was an incredible source of strength.
Wow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I mean, what is what do you want a person to go away with? Do you want them to go away with a sense of, okay, there's so many different types of grief, or do you want them to go away with a feeling of, oh, by hearing this, it's made my pain bearable. Do you think, I mean, which is your way of
It's
looking
really
at it?
both. It's like, oh, I'm normal. Like this is normal. Like I'm normal. I'm not crazy. It's walking like, with grief, sometimes we could feel like crazy. Like you could feel like you're crazy. It's coming up to 3 years. Why am I having such a hard time? But if you come on and you say this is normal, and the first, the third year was my hardest, but suddenly year number 4 is much easier, someone will say, wow, like I'm not crazy. It's normal. So it's really just normalizing it. And again, if you have a friend that's listening to this and your friend might be judging you and mumbling to other friends, oh, come on, what's your problem? It's 3 years already. But now she'll hear it and she'll say, oh, I shouldn't be so judgmental, Khani. Like it's normal.
Yeah, I really do think that that's important because, first of all, people, we don't speak so much about grief. I mean, once somebody is, not here anymore, our way of coping is, okay, let's continue our lives. And actually, the person who's going through, the person who's close to the person who was nifta, they are still left in that place of, I lost my mother, I lost my, for you, it was a sibling or a mother and a father. You know, they're not, they're not, we're not going on. Do you know what I mean?
Right,
And
right.
I think that's important to for others to understand that we are sometimes stuck in that place. I can't explain what I'm. Do you understand what I'm saying?
It's we're stuck because there could be reminders all over the place, and someone won't necessarily know where the reminders are for us. Like we might have a knife that we use all the time that we got from our mother, but suddenly taking out that knife could bring up so much pain. It could be silly things like that that no one knows because how should they?
I have no connection to that. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. I mean, for me, I just, it's interesting how this third year, I don't know why. I mean, last year was also very hard, but I didn't, I think it's very final to me now. I can't explain it. It's like my mind has realized that this is a fun, it's finished. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not going to
Right.
get better next year. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
And I think that it's different for everybody to come to that place. Like some people might really like, after 6 months be like, okay, this is it. I get it. It's final, and other people it could just take longer. It's a personality.
Yeah. I'll tell you, my husband is in the year now, and
Oh,
he has a totally different way of coping. It's really interesting. It's like so interesting. Yeah, we cope completely differently. Like I think the next day he was just ready to go on with it, and I'm thinking, hold on, why am I being so crazy? You're not,
right, right.
like you say, we each have another way of a different way of coping, and it's important. So as we're coming towards the end, before we go anywhere that we're finished, I just wanted to know if you have any ideas of help and that's available, support that people could reach out to, because I really think that people need to know that you could reach out. There are people who are there to help you. It's not something that you have to cope on your own. And there is plenty of work being done in the communities. I know that you're in Lakewood, I'm in England, but this type of work is universal, and people help. I mean, I know links. If you give me some places that you would have thought of.
So, like you said, there's Links, which is for teens that lost a parent. There's also Little Links of Pearls, which is, the division of Links for younger children. I think they start at 5th grade. And the other division of Links is Shlomi's Club, which is for the boys. They're amazing. They do unbelievable stuff. Um, there are organizations for parents that lost a child. Miriam is the name of a big organization that comes to my mind. There's also Our Tapestry. Um,
How about for adults? Just a person who loses a parent, or a person. It doesn't have to be a shocking
a
story.
story, right? I know. So I was just gonna say, like, that's the problem when it's just like, part of life loss. I don't really know much that's out there. I think that people need it a lot. I think that if, people would start support groups for it, even like not necessarily like professional run by a therapist, but support groups where people could kind of talk together about their pain, I think it would be very, very beneficial. but I don't know offhand of so much.
That's something that we just put out there into the open world. I'm sure there's somebody who's listening who will take that up.
There's actually another book that I wrote a while ago. It's called
Oh,
Comfort, Courage, and Clarity. And it's really written, it's written, it could be used as a format for a support group.
oh,
It has
wow.
different articles, it has questions to discuss.
Oh,
So
really? Oh, I must see
yeah.
that one. I keep on just telling you all the ones that I want to see. Okay. Yeah, but I think that's so important. You're right. We need to, put that out into the community, and we need to try to get, there are people who will take on that, that challenge.
That rule.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a challenge, but there are people who are available for that. I think that's very, very good. I think as we come to an end, I just would like you to give me, let's say, from the book that you're just talking about, if you give me like one or two takeaways for myself, even, and that doesn't have to be for everybody, but for myself, of where, I mean, I don't even know what I'm looking for, but it just to know. There's sometimes that some days that I feel so lost, and I wonder, is there any guidance or any tips you could give on that?
I think that when a person is really feeling that pain, I think connecting to the nifter could be very, very helpful. I think a lot of times, it's easier to just run away. Oh my gosh, this is hurting me so much. I'm running, I'm going shopping, I'm going to eat pizza. But really, like, finding something to connect. So whether it's, if, going to the cover could be helpful, could be harmful. I guess, that's very personal. I mean, everything really is personal, but even writing a letter to the person and saying what you're feeling, or doing something Eli Nishmas, you're connecting, and I think that really could help a lot.
It's interesting that you say about going to the cave, because I used to go every month, and then I just can't do it. I just can't. I don't know. This last few months have been particularly. I'm finding that all very stressful. But this is life. Life is about loss, and the only way the one thing that we can say from all this is the more you love somebody, the more, the more, yeah. So that's what it's all about. That's Hashem gave us life. We have to live it, and loss is part of it. And I really,
when maybe I told this to you, I feel like I said it in the past. I don't know. Am I repeating myself? Shortly after I lost my father, and I was talking to a few people at a time. I don't remember exactly the nature of the phone call, but I didn't even know everyone on the call that well. And someone said, and I was talking about that my father just died and the pain that I'm in. And this person said to me, "You're so lucky that you're in pain. If my father would die, I wouldn't care." And I was like, oh. And since then, I've learned a lot about grief. And, in a way, like, it's still easier to grieve the loss of a loved one, of someone that we had a good relationship with, than to grieve the loss of a close relative that we didn't have a good relationship with.
100% true, 1,000% true. Anyway, we should only, all of us, I'm just, as we're finishing, but I want to just say one thing to everybody. And, Miriam, I'm sure you'll agree. I wish everyone that they should be gesund, and we shouldn't have to know from Tsar. It's a very big bracha that we shouldn't have to know from Tsar. But if chas v'shalom, if you go through this, then there are places to reach out to, and know that you're 100% normal. And everybody, like Miriam said, has a different way of coping. We all cope, and that's just part of our lives. And if there's anything you want to add, Miriam, please do. And no,
I think you said it beautifully. I think that's the message.
Yeah. Thank you very much for joining me here, Miriam.
Thank you so much for being here.
I will put the details of the books on the bottom of the actual podcast. And I really enjoyed talking to you. And I hope that I'll see you all next week again, Miss Hashem, on Sunday evening. Thank you, Miriam. Good night.
Thank you so much. Good night.